Ag Report. On this week's program, we talk with Aaron Harries from Kansas Wheat. We'll recap the 2024 Kansas wheat crop and harvest. We'll also have features from Kansas corn, more from Kansas wheat, as well as the Kansas Farm Bureau, and the weekly update from the Kansas Livestock Association and market information from Pinion. Kansas Ag Report brought to you in part by the Kansas Soybean Commission, the Soybean Checkoff, Progress powered by Kansas farmers. Kansas Farm Bureau, a grassroots ag organization representing the state's farm and ranch families since 1919, kfb.org. And the Kansas Wheat Commission, lending in the adoption of profitable innovations from wheat, online at kswheat.com. Kansas rancher Jan Lyons received the Beef Checkoff Visionary Award at the 2024 Cattle Industry Summer Business Meeting in San Diego. This award, given by the Cattlemen's Beef Board, recognizes an individual in the beef industry who has demonstrated exemplary support and commitment to the Checkoff's goals and vision. Lyons and her husband Frank started their Angus cow herd south of Manhattan more than 40 years ago. Over the years, she has given much of her energy and time to the beef industry. She first volunteered as a 4-H leader at the local and county levels, then the Kansas Junior Angus Association, and her volunteer efforts grew from there. She served as the president of the Kansas Angus Association in 1982, as president of the Kansas Livestock Association in 1994, chairman of the Cattlemen's Beef Board in 1996, and then president of NCBA in 2004. An independent analysis of the Beef Checkoff had thoroughly assessed the effectiveness and additional financial benefits produced by the program's demand-driven activities. The study was conducted by Dr. Harry Kaiser of Cornell University. It was released at that meeting in San Diego. Had objectives to measure, including whether the National Beef Checkoff demand-driving activities increased demand for beef products. The study also wanted to determine if the combined benefits of those activities in terms of their incremental financial impact on the beef producers and importers as well. The Beef Checkoff's Evaluation Committee pleased with the results of the latest study and said the statistics uncovered tell them that the committee is achieving the goal of providing exports and imports with the excellent return on their investment. The study calculated the ROI at $13.41 for every dollar that's spent. Now, without the Beef Checkoff, the study shows total domestic beef demand would have been 2.4 billion pounds per year lower than the actual results, and prices would have been about 7.8% lower. And the number of farmers responding to surveys from the National Ag Statistics Service has dropped in recent years. And after a new study out from the American Statistical Association, it warned of the reliability of U.S. economic data is at risk for several reasons. You see, in the early 90s, response rates for NASS crop surveys were at 80 to 85%. By the late 2010s, responsiveness had fallen below 60% in some cases. A more specific example, in 2017, the Census of Agriculture had a response rate of over 71%, but the 2022 census had a response rate of 61%. Now, factors affecting response rates include concerns about data privacy and constraints from farmers. An increase in number of people requesting information from farmers is discouraging some to respond. Refusal rates are rising as well, and Lance Honing of NASS says it's more than an inability to reach people that's increasing. We'll have more coming up in just a moment. Thank you for joining us here on the Kansas Ag Report. The Kansas Ag Report brought to you in part by Kansas Grain Sorghum, growers working together. Learn more at ksgrainsorghum.org. Grass and Grain, online or in the mail, keeping Kansas farmers informed for over 60 years. grassandgrain.com. Joining us now is Aaron Harries, who is Vice President of Research and Operations for Kansas Wheat. Hi, Aaron.
Hi, Ken. Thanks for having me.
Aaron, we're going to talk about the 2024 Kansas wheat harvest that is just basically all done, but the shout, and maybe it's a couple of pockets, maybe. We started out early and we kind of came and gone. But overall, if you and I had this conversation in 1st of April, we may have thought about a different story than the way this thing turned out.
Yeah, we wouldn't have been nearly as optimistic. And I think the overall theme for the 2024 wheat crop is better than expected. So USDA's number that came out last week bumped the total harvest all the way up to 307 million bushels. So that gets us to about 43 bushels per acre. And boy, that's a 53% increase over last year. And how many years can you say you do that? And so, we were closer to 200 million bushels a year ago. And we just had those timely rains that came on late in the spring, along with some favorable cool weather, and got some better than expected results in places. And so the harvest did start a little early and moved pretty darn fast. I know the folks maybe in your part of the state in Northwest Kansas would disagree with that. It slowed down a little bit there, but glad to have this one in the bins.
I will tell you, Aaron, even though it was kind of start and stop, we did start about 10, 11 days early, but I never heard anybody complain about having to stop because of the rain showers, other than those
Yeah.
just wanted to get it done. But Aaron, I know in talking with producers all over the state, not everybody had that bumper crop. In watching some of your reports that came across, it went from this is the best wheat crop we've ever had to uh, another year of a challenge. And so I guess that is just the constant theme of a Kansas wheat farmer, though.
It sure is, and it's the variability that we talk about every year. And you're right, exactly. There were some folks that didn't have a great year, from Salina on west to Great Bend up to Hayes and Hutchinson area. A lot of those places, frankly, are still struggling and seeking out some rain. So we certainly feel for those folks. Even in those spots where yields were pretty dramatically lower, I know they wanted better things, but they were still better than last year, which I keep saying that, but it's hard not to get better than the 2023 crop. But we will have protein in pockets because of that drought stress situation. I know in the elevators around Salina, a lot of 13% protein wheat, and that just goes back to what you said, that variability. And what happens in Kansas is that wheat gets blended together, and when all is said and done, we're going to have about an average crop size wise by bushels, and certainly an average crop, maybe a little bit better on quality.
Well, and that's one of the things. The quality was there. I heard from a lot of farmers that were very pleased with the straw strength they saw when able to maybe get that as another part of that crop. The heads were filled and full. And the one thing, we did have many areas that had better than expected protein.
We did, yeah. It's something we'll have to study a little bit. The timing of the rains and the plant being under stress in the early part of the spring and getting that rain. So it did produce that protein, obviously, and still. But we do have good size kernels out there. The size of the kernels, which is something the millers obviously look at, and the domestic millers we talked to, it hasn't gotten into the export markets quite that much yet. But the domestic millers are very pleased with how the crop mills, and from what we've seen in early baking samples and things like that, it's performing very well. So yeah, there's a lot we still don't know about wheat, and this is going to be a year to look back and say, what exactly was that scenario where we were getting some yields, we were getting some protein that was better than expected.
Aaron Harries with Kansas Wheat is joining us this week as we're reviewing the 2024 Kansas wheat crop. We'll take a break, come back with more in just a moment. Kansas Ag Report brought to you in part by the Kansas Livestock Association, supporting members' business interests and meeting consumer demands. KLA.org. Oldie Seed Farms, carrying soil-specific seed. Find them on the web at oldieseed.com. That's OHLDE seed.com. And Kansas Corn, building the future at kansascorn.com. And Aaron Harries from Kansas Wheat is joining us this week as we're reviewing this year's Kansas wheat harvest and the crop that has made it this far anyway. So, Aaron, let's maybe talk about some of the next steps as we've now got the crop in the bin. Some farmers are selling, some are looking for some opportunities. But as we get to that point, also talk about kind of how we got to where we are. Folks like the Kansas Wheat Commission and others invest with wheat breeders at K-State and others to come up with the varieties that, as you said earlier, maybe study some of those, have how we got to some of these successes.
Yeah, and then farmers, of course, fund that research through the wheat checkoff, and it does pay dividends. I hope people are seeing that on a year like this year. You've got to have some rain, but even if it's minimal rain, these new varieties are really proving that they're resilient, right? They hang in there. If they get a good start and an opportunity, they can go quite a ways without some rainfall and still do some good things. So it's just that pipeline of new wheat varieties coming out, and there are some new wheat varieties out there that are just home runs on a year like this year that exceeded expectations. And so tip of the hat to the geneticists and wheat breeders, and I can promise folks there are some really good things coming down the lines, because the science is moving just as fast as the harvest did this year, and the future is bright for new wheat genetics.
I do have to make just a quick mention. One of the variety that's going to be available, at least to certain areas, coming soon, and that is KS Bill Snyder. I think there was a little bit out there with some folks that were able to get started, and to see how that turned out, I'll be curious to find that out.
Yeah, it's exciting. Little project we started here from Kansas Wheat, a great way to honor Coach Snyder, who meant so much to Kansans, I think especially rural Kansans. So yeah, it's going to be a popular wheat. It's low on supply this year. So yeah, you're going to be people are going to have to wait a little bit. The drought last year affected the seed production, but next fall, folks will be talking about it.
Let's talk about that export market. We've got this wheat. We keep hearing there's wheat all over the world, but things are turning around. The world is wanting hard red wheat.
They are, and it's competitive now. I mean, we're to the point where we're not competitive with every country. It always depends upon what's going on with Russia, but the size of the crop we have, the fact that ending stocks are higher, and farmers locally don't like what the price has been doing, definitely, but it does make it more cost effective and affordable for the rest of the world. So we're going to see export numbers for wheat up substantially over last year, and that's a good thing for everybody. Keep that U.S. wheat going around the world.
Well, Aaron, we appreciate taking the time to give us the update on how the harvest was this year for Kansas wheat, also the prospects moving forward. So we appreciate it.
Thank you, Ken.
Aaron Harries, the Vice President of Research and Operations for Kansas Wheat, has joined us. We will take a break, come back with more here on the Kansas Ag Report.
Many seed companies claim to offer the latest genetics, but how many have tested those genetics in soils just like yours? The Oldie Seed Know to Grow research program has fully tested the latest seed genetics in soils that are right in your neighborhood. The Oldie Seed Know to Grow program can recommend the best performing hybrids from technologies like Enlist, Extend, and Liberty Link that will optimize the yield and profit of every acre on your farm. Contact Oldie Seed today.
What does a brighter, more sustainable future look like in our cities and towns, and how do we get there? When New York needed an alternative fuel source to reduce carbon emissions, the city found what it needed in biodiesel made from U.S. soybean oil.
Good afternoon. This is Bill Johnston with Kansas Corn, and I'm about to have my afternoon snack. One of my favorite afternoon snacks is popcorn, but I don't have any popcorn. I do have some field corn though, and all corn's the same, right? Actually, listen. It is popping. This might work. Let's see. Well, kind of popped. Not like popcorn, but hey, all corn's the same, right? Let me try a little bit of it. That's terrible. This was a bad idea. all corn is not the same. We commonly recognize 4 types of corn. One is flint corn that is commonly used for decorating. Lots of times it's called Indian corn. It has a hard shell and it can come in many different colors. Then there's popcorn. Popcorn's a popular snack food that pops when we heat it. It's actually a type of flint corn, but it's become so popular that now we consider it a separate type. Then there's the kind that we eat, which is sweet corn. We only use sweet corn for food because it obviously tastes good. It's tender and juicy, and we harvest it right on the cob. Lots of times that sweet corn plant has more than one ear, and it's one of the shorter kinds of corn. And then finally, there's dent corn, the most common kind of corn that we raise in Kansas by far. We use it for feed and lots of other things. To us, this stuff tastes bad. It's hard, it's dry. We harvest it off the cob. Usually each plant only has one ear. We use it for lots of non-food products too, like ethanol and shampoo and actually thousands of other things. But we use it in food sometimes too. Cornbread, corn oil, and cornstarch.
What if U.S. soybean meal were more than a commodity? If seed companies and the soybean checkoff built a better variety? That future is here. The time is now. To meet end-user demands, the soybean checkoff is investing in the compositional quality of soybeans, including meal. A message from the Kansas Soybean Commission, the Soybean Checkoff, progress powered by Kansas farmers.
Kansas Corn reminds you that E15 fuel is the right choice for every kind of driver. For the car enthusiast, E15 has higher octane. For the thrifty driver, E15 is priced lower than regular unleaded. For the nature lover, E15 provides cleaner air. For the shopper who buys local, E15 has more ethanol from our Kansas corn farms. Choose E15 for a higher octane, lower price, cleaner American fuel. Message from the Kansas Corn Commission. Learn more at kscorn.com.
Kansas State University researchers and representatives of Kansas Wheat have published updated findings on the value of feeding wheat to pigs. Joel DeRushi, a swine specialist for K-State Research and Extension, said, "Our data collected from 2014 to 2020 suggested that wheat's mean energy content is 99 and 98% of corn and digestible energy." Joel DeRushi, a swine specialist for K-State Research and Extension, said, "Our data collected from 2014 to 2020 suggested that what's mean energy content is 99% and 98% of corn for digestible energy and metabolizable energy, respectively." Bottom line, wheat can be used at a similar rate as corn in those areas where wheat is available without a major decrease in the diet energy density. The use of wheat co-products for the milling industry is a common practice in feeding livestock, DeRushi said. For wheat, there are many different classifications of co-products such as wheat middlings, wheat mill run, wheat shorts, and wheat red dog. K-State formed a partnership with Kansas Wheat to update what is known about the nutritional value of wheat and wheat co-products. Wheat milling co-products, including bran, middlings, and shorts, provide good nutritional value, said Aaron Harries, the Vice President of Research and Operations for Kansas Wheat. In particular, those products have high phosphorus content, which results in less supplemental phosphorus in the diet and reduced costs for the producer. According to DeRushi, key findings in the fact sheet includes: wheat contains higher levels of crude protein and amino acids compared to other cereal grains. This allows for less soybean meal inclusion in the diet. Wheat's standardized allele digestibility of amino acids is similar to corn but greater than barley or sorghum, DeRushi said. Harries noted that the updated findings on feeding wheat to swine provides valuable new information for swine feeders. It allows farmers to consider swine feeding as an alternative marketplace for their wheat, he said.
Green sorghum is one of the most important cereal crops worldwide, and Kansas leads the nation in its production. Over the years, sorghum has been either exported, used in animal feed domestically, or for other industrial uses. Recently, its use in the ethanol market has seen tremendous growth, with 30% of domestic sorghum typically going to ethanol production. Kansas Grain Sorghum is committed to sorghum research, market development, and education. Learn more at ksgrainsorghum.org.
Gerald and Linda Franklin of Sherman County have served Kansas Farm Bureau for more than 20 years. Linda represented the 10th District as a board member from 2005 to 2014, and Gerald took a position on the board from 2015 to 2016. Through the years, the Franklins have fought challenges on the political forefront, specifically advocating for water quality. The Franklin family manages a diversified operation, which includes irrigated and dryland wheat, corn, grain sorghum, soybeans, and sunflowers. Congratulations, Jerry and Linda.
Congratulations to Donovan County Farm Bureau, winner of the County Innovation Award in Advocacy, who hosted an Urban Escape Farm Tour for 5 urban legislators this year. The decision makers received a personal ag experience and had an open discussion on issues and concerns with area farmers and ranchers. A locally grown farm-to-fork meal was provided, along with roundtable discussions. The county was encouraged by the relationships forged and say these friends now stand as allies and resources, ensuring the county's advocacy efforts will continue to foster conversations about agriculture for years to come. Congratulations to Donovan County for its remarkable efforts in planning and executing an event to enhance advocacy efforts in the county and state.
Imagine turning soybean oil, used cooking oils, and waste animal fats into fuel so amazing it drives U.S. jobs and our economy forward. Learn more about biodiesel at americasadvancedbiofuel.com.
The Kansas Department of Agriculture Division of Conservation has announced the availability of funds in the form of cost share assistance and incentive payments to aid feed yards and dairy operations in their efforts to conserve water. The Kansas Livestock Water Efficiency Pilot Project is designed to enhance and/or upgrade current large-scale livestock watering systems in commercial feed yards and dairies by providing cost-share assistance for practices such as upgrading to high-efficiency livestock waterers and water recycling systems. Funding is provided through appropriation from the State Water Plan Fund. Stock water right holders annually pay fees totaling nearly $500,000 that go into this fund. KLA supported the legislation authorizing this cost share program, which makes those dollars available to livestock water rights holders implementing water conservation projects. The KDA Division of Conservation will accept applications through the close of business July 31st. Construction, installation, or implementation of practices started prior to contract approval will not be eligible. Eligible applicants must hold a current livestock water right with the state. Once approved, financial assistance agreements are limited to a maximum of 3 years. For an application or more information on the details about funding eligibility, go to agriculture.ks.gov.
The Kansas Wheat Innovation Center in Manhattan is rediscovering ways to get improved varieties and new genetics in the hands of farmers faster. Grower-led and checkoff-funded research initiatives are bringing about positive change. This grassroots leadership provides a strong voice in Topeka and Washington, D.C. Now is the time to partner with Kansas Wheat in moving wheat forward. Kansas Wheat Commission and Kansas Association of Wheat Growers. Farmers investing in their future and yours. Log on to rediscoverwheat.org.
Good morning. This is Jacob Herzog with Pinion Risk Management. Last week's supply and demand report is out of the way, without major damage to the markets. the USDA has kept most of the U.S. and world ending stocks unchanged from the forecast in May, but did drop Russia's wheat crop by 5 million metric tons to 83, and it cut Ukraine's by 1.5 million metric tons to 19.5. Now, outside of last week's USDA report, old crop values have been gaining slightly on new crop. Demand for U.S. old crop corn continues to rise and to be competitive. And with Brazil's bean supplies tight, we actually see bean exports from the Pacific Northwest are cheaper for China than importing them from South America. Now in Washington, the Fed has kept rates unchanged, with a forecasted cut sometime this year and potentially 4 in 2025. Now with all this behind us, the trade looks to the extended weather forecast in the June 28th USDA report. I believe most in the trade are expecting to see a slight decrease in corn and an increase in bean acres. But again, if that is the expectation, the trade will need to see an upset for a major price swing. Of course, weather is basically going to trump almost everything, as it usually does. Current forecasts out east call for much above average temperatures and more or less about on average precipitation. Now, it feels like it will come down to the forecast either adding to or taking out of forecasted rainfall. More rain, less heat, markets will likely fall. Less rain, more heat, they will likely rally. I know it's obvious, and we all basically know how it works every June, July, August weather markets. Caution is advised for the next couple months on the marketing side. If you would like to talk to somebody about a plan, you can reach us at 888-452-8751. I'm Jacob Herzog with Pinion Risk Management.
Many seed companies claim to offer the latest genetics, but how many have tested those genetics in soils just like yours? The Oldie Seed Know to Grow research program has fully tested the latest seed genetics in soils that are right in your neighborhood. The Oldie Seed Know to Grow program can recommend the best performing hybrids from technologies like Enlist, Extend, and Liberty Link that will optimize the yield and profit of every acre on your farm. Contact Oldie Seed today.
That will do it for our program this week. Thank you so much for joining us. Be social with us online, KansasAgReport.net, or our social media channels. I'm Ken Rogers. We'll see you next week on the Kansas Ag Report.
Next time you see a beautiful field of corn, reach out and thank the farmers who work tirelessly to raise corn for livestock feed, renewable fuels, and exports to feed a growing world population. The farmers on the Kansas Corn Commission work for Kansas Corn with grower-funded checkoff dollars that support foreign and domestic market development, research, promotion, and education to expand opportunities for Kansas farmers. To learn more, visit kscorn.com.
What does a brighter, more sustainable future look like in our cities and towns, and how do we get there? When New York needed an alternative fuel source to reduce carbon emissions, the city found what it needed in biodiesel made from U.S. soybean oil.